I decided to do Post-Impressionism as my era, and the Post-Impressionism, of course, comes out of the Impressionist movement. The Impressionist movement, which I decided to pick by this painting right here, is essentially a movement dedicated to pre-photography, pre-photography to photography. It explores the use of color and brushstroke and all these things to depict real life. They want to depict reality in the most accurate way possible. I think that's the best way of describing the Impressionist movement. But they also use but they don't always use classical techniques to do so. They are generally more abstracted. You see like people in post impressionism, but they won't always draw the people to be exact because the point is to draw what you see, not to draw exactly what should be there, which is definitely a departure from a lot of older art. And generally, the culture we see around the post-impressionist era is inspired by, of course, the second industrial revolution and the urbanization that comes from that, and but not just that, but the influx of independent artists onto the scene. This is the second era after impressionism, of course, where we really see a lot of artists starving. We like Van Gogh, like Gauguin, honestly. I mean, we see the effects of a increasing laxness of religious things. We see a lot less religious art, and we get some like in the expressionist era, but it's a lot more secular than we ever had before. The post impressionist is where this really ramps up further. In not just that as well, but we also see influxes of influences from things like Japanese prints and foreign art, which is not entirely unique, but is definitely a unique a unique part of post impressionist genre as a whole. I would say that, and also the general stability of France at the time, which is why the Impressionist and post-Impressionist era was essentially all in France, because France was an incredibly stable country in the 1880s. It was a very good time to be in Paris. The urbanization was high. If you were an artist, you could really. It was very easy for you to get the supplies you needed, and to just paint. It you didn't need patrons. I mean, Van Gogh, one of the best artists we could, like of this era, didn't only ever sold one painting in his life, and that was due to the fact that you could be an independent artist and you could actually get art supplies from other sources besides patrons or art guilds, because those were the other thing, and that moved on. In general, though, yeah. The movie I watched for about the post-impressionism was Loving Vincent, and I think definitely the character I related to most was Adeline Review. Review was a woman is a woman who was the daughter of the person who owned the apartment where Van Gogh lived up to his death in Auvers, which is the city he died in, not born, but was where he lived the last years of I think months of his life or years. And in general, I relate to her specifically due to the fact that she was stood back from the interesting people. She interacted with Van Gogh as in the way of a server does. But she knew him because he lived where she stayed because it was her a hostel. But it's not like like this man right here was a I forgot his name, I'm sorry, but he was a Van Gogh's doctor, and he was incredibly focused on Van Gogh and on Van Gogh's personal life, and he's this academic, and in some ways I relate to him at being someone who wants to be an academic, but also this man, but I don't think I would be, and I also do find some interesting things in Ulin. This is Armand. Armand is the son of Van Gogh's post officer. And the reason this happens is because a letter from Van Gogh ends up being not being sent. So he needs to find Theo, and then he finds out Theo's dead. So then he goes to Auvers to figure out who to send it to. Marat. I think his name's Marat. No, it's not. I'm sorry. Um, but yes, and that's the general plot. And we see Armand become more and more invested in this. He even loses his job because he spent a week or two in Auvers, and getting into a fight and getting kicked out, all because of Vincent, and this idea of trying to figure out what actually happened to him. And I relate to her really be as I, I feel like in any of these stories, I would be a bystander because her general life wasn't art. I would not be someone who would be in the arts. If anything, I would be. If anything, I can really look at this guy, the academic, because because he also was someone who wanted to wanted art. He wanted someone he wanted to do art, but he couldn't. And I and he also was an academic, and I relate to those things. I could see myself being just a hostess or a host. You know what I mean? Someone who just is runs a small time job and just exists in a world where other people exist. I But if I were to be able to get art from patrons, I think I would want a portrait again. I think I think portraits are very interesting. I think in general, style wise, I wouldn't particularly go for Van Gogh. I kind of like a less spotty style. I do like this. Something like this would be rather cool. Post Impressionism also has some early forms of abstract art, and I'm a big fan of abstract art. I mean, this isn't my favorite genre. Like overall, I think Romanticism is better in some ways. I like the way Romanticism looks more, but I think Post Impressionism is a very interesting piece time period to be an artist, um which is why I picked it. And in general, if I were to, yeah, portraits, I really like landscapes. I think landscapes are rather nice, and famously, was it Guggen? Gauguin? He did some very famous landscapes of that mountain. We went whenever in class, and I think something like that. I think what I personally like. I think But and in general, this is the painting I just picted as the post-impressionist era, mainly because post-impressionism was not just Van Gogh. Post-impressionism was a very wide-ranging movement, and it includes things like pointillism, and it includes more realism and early abstract art, all combined together in this genre. And I think this is a very interesting painting due to the use due to I think it captures what the point of post-impressionism was, because impressionism yet again was trying to replicate photography and using color and using form to show reality, while instead post-impressionism is using color and using form to show anything. You can show most of these show paint, but it's generally emotion. It's generally emotion, or it's just really even with this is just how he painted. I think that these are very interesting paintings because he's just doing this to show the world around him. This doesn't kind of these strokes. I don't think they inherently mean something. In general, though, like this work right here, there's many reasons why this is unique to the post-impressionist era, in particular around this time, because before this point, I just don't think we'd see a lot of colonial art. From what I know, this is art of, I think it's the Mayas. I could be wrong there, but I think this is this is art of a Central American area, and specifically as well, the use of backgrounds in this way and the use of not literal scenes, but also somewhat literal scenes. I think we this is actually very similar to things like the luncheon on the grass, right? And the lunch on the grass, seeing people in a regular state. This is sort of like that in the way of I bet some of these people are real people. I bet this is somewhat portrait, somewhat landscape, somewhat like still life, somewhat like historical piece. All these combine into one merger of ideas, which isn't unique to specifically the post-impressionist movement, but is unique to the impressionist movement as a whole. And the big difference, yet again, is the subjects. These subjects are not do not have to be real people, and this painting is a abstract piece of work. And post impressionism had some kinds of abstractness to it. It wasn't, but it never had anything like this. There is not form in here. This is more a concept of form. This is fighting forms. Yeah, this is a German expressionist piece from the from the post World War One era, where and or actually mid World War One era. And I think generally this depicts emotions, but it removes the only removes humanity from it. It removes the idea of seeing through your eyes. You start off with impressionism, still playing with colors, playing with form, but you're doing it based on reality. Then you do it based on reality and your emotions. This is a both. You want to show the world around you, and you want to show how you feel about the world around you. But in the end, it ends by just showing how you feel cardinally. This is like cardinal feel. This is an abstract piece of work that could never be made in the post-impressionist era or any era really before the expressionist movement and movements like that, because we see people who made strange art like Bosch for a long time, but even in these eras we start seeing more abstract pieces and concepts, but this moves from abstract to only being abstract. And I think that is why this German expressionist piece could never be made in the post-impressionist era, because it used things that post-impressionists didn't appreciate, and it removed the idea of the human mind being what you need to depict emotion. Everything here relies on I what I must see, I what I must see must depict the world around me. You could basically, it moves on from I only paint what I see. I only paint what I could see. I paint what I don't see. This is like painting a dream. And this is like also painting a dream. And I think they're very similar. And someone in an impressionist era could describe these as similar, right? This didn't happen. This isn't real. This didn't happen. This isn't real. But there is a fundamental difference there, and I think that is interesting. And particularly displays what the post-impressionist era was about. It was about um a change in society from one where art is patronage from and patronage and guilds, to where art is something you do to express your emotions, and this being the step between that world and a world of patronage, a world where your emotions matter, like London in the Herb, right? In the grass, sorry. But there is still this level of respectability to it.